Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. General Hospital. Drew's brutal karma smackdown. Shocking house heir revealed? So right now, Ronnie Bard, Erica Slezak, is being forced to sell the Quartermaine mansion to Drew because Martin Gray, Michael E. Knight, threatened her with prison if she doesn't do what he says. Ronnie does not want to sell to Drew, but that's what you get for conspiring with Martin. Really, Ronnie is like everybody else in Port Charles. She does not like Drew. And she knows that he is not a good person. Plus, other than Tracy Quartermaine, Jane Elliott, we've seen that Ronnie likes the Quartermaine family and she does not want to betray them. Unfortunately, Martin is not leaving her any choice. Hot on the heels of the lawyer telling Ronnie she has to sell the mansion to his client, Drew showed up at the house and he announced that Ronnie agreed to sell to him. And of course, everybody was upset. Tracy flipped out the most. She chewed Ronnie a new one and said she dishonored her sister, Monica's, memories. Ronnie was of course flustered and said she didn't want to be involved in all the Quartermaine drama, so she's going to sell and leave Port Charles. And of course, she can't tell them that Martin's blackmailing her. So Ronnie has to make excuses and play along and then just try to get out of this. Cody's legal gambit. A setback for Drew's mansion takeover on GH? Here's what I suspect may happen this week. There are official GH spoilers saying Cody Bell, Josh Kelly, get some legal advice possibly from Molly Lansing Davis, Kristen Vaganos, and by the end of the week, General Hospital spoilers say Drew has a big setback. So maybe Cody finds a way to stop Drew from getting the Q mansion. Maybe he talks to Molly about some facet of inheritance law or something. We do know Cody is really close to Tracy and he absolutely despises Drew. Ever since Cody found out Drew was sleeping with Nina Reeves, Cynthia Watrose, while seducing Willow Tate, Caitlin McMullen, away from Michael Corinthos, Rory Gibson, you know, he has hated the guy. So, I think it'd be great if Cody found a way to shut down the creepy congressman. But even if Drew doesn't get messed up by Cody, it seems like something is going to fall apart based on the spoiler about a setback for Congressman Cutthroat. So, I just wonder if Drew is going to give Ronnie a big pile of cash for the mansion. Literally millions of dollars. And she takes the money and runs. I mean, obviously, she's got to split it with Martin, but Ronnie's not going to stick around Port Charles since she doesn't want to get busted for fraud. So, we'll see if Cody turns up some sort of way that Drew can't actually close on the house. Or maybe he buys it and then the sale is cancelled retroactively. Karma in Port Charles. Will Drew Kane lose everything? You know, obviously it's going to come out that Ronnie didn't really inherit the house and that means she couldn't legally sell it to Drew. In the end, not only could he lose a pile of cash because of Martin's scheme, but Drew most certainly is not going to wind up with the Quartermaine estate in the long run. Plus, you know, Tracy, Michael, and the others are going to rub it in Drew's face when it all blows up on him. And that would be just a delicious, delicious slap from karma. Eventually, we're going to find out who Monica really left the Q house to in her original will. Right now, we don't know what was really in that document, though, because Martin altered it. All we know is that Monica left Ronnie the locket and nothing else because Martin spelled that out. So, let's get into who is going to actually end up with the Quartermaine mansion once the dust settles because it most assuredly will not be Drew. Be sure to stick around till the end to hear the most shocking outcome from Monica's real will though. A legacy for the prodigal son on General Hospital. Did Monica leave the mansion to Jason Morgan? First of all, we know Tracy wanted Michael to have the house, but maybe instead it went to the person that Monica considers her one last living child. Maybe she left the house to Jason Morgan, Steve Burton. Remember, Monica always wanted Jason to come back home and be part of the Q family again. And now that he finally has, maybe Monica decided to leave the house to Jason to ensure that he would stay. Plus, Alan Quartermaine, Stuart Damon, bought the house and he is Jason's bio dad. So, I think Monica leaving it to Jason is possible, but it's not the soapiest outcome. The next generation on GH, a Quartermaine inheritance for the grandkids or Ned and Olivia. So, the second thing, Monica might have left the Q house equally to the grandkids. Maybe she left it in a trust with Jason as the executor until all of the grandkids come of age. Monica's grandkids are Danny Morgan, Asher Jarrett and Tonneson, Scout Kane, Cosette Abinante, Jake Weber, Hudson West, and Michael. So maybe they co-own it and each of them gets a quarter of the house. But maybe Monica decided to go another route and instead she left the house to Ned Quartermaine, Wally Kurth, and Olivia Falconeri, Lisa Lo Cicero, as the next generation's matriarch and patriarch of the Quartermain family, knowing that they would obviously take care of everybody. Monica might see them as the next generation Edward Quartermain, John Ingle, and Lila Quartermain, Anna Lee. So she might have left the mansion to them with the caveat that any Quartermain who wants to live there is welcome, excluding Drew. Of course, there is no doubt Ned and Olivia would keep the Q mansion as a warm and loving home open to all the family if Monica had left it to them. And you know, if Olivia and Ned got the place, Olivia would hurry up and add that pizza oven she's been wanting for so long. The apple of her eye. Why Michael Corinthos could be the sole heir. And remember, stick around to the end because that's when I'm going to give you the wildest and soapiest option. But one more before then. Consider whether Monica left the Q estate to Michael just like Tracy wanted. I mean, maybe she did. If you remember, Tracy was talking about how Michael was the apple of Monica's eye. So yeah, maybe she did what Tracy suggested and left it to A.J. Quartermain's, Sean Cannon, only child. Tracy would be thrilled if the Q mansion went to Michael and his kids because of course Tracy would still live there and get to boss everybody around. And obviously she'd love for Michael to get it. The ultimate General Hospital twist. Could Tracy Quartermain inherit the mansion? But here's the thing, I really wanted to get to the most soapy and dramatic option. What if Monica actually left the house to Tracy? You know how much Monica loved to tell Tracy that Alan left the mansion to her. Monica rubbed it in Tracy's face all the time over the years. She tossed her out of the house more than once. So maybe Monica decided to undo some of that old animosity and she left Tracy the mansion for as long as she lives, and then the ownership would revert to Michael, who is Monica's one and only biological grandchild. Once Tracy never short on drama. But this week, the storm clouds are gathering right over Drew Kane's head, and it looks like the universe is ready to serve up a brutal plate of karma. What began as Drew's power-hungry quest for dominance at Aurora Media and his obsession with control is now threatening to destroy everything he's built. But the biggest shocker of all? A stunning revelation about the Quartermain estate that could expose the true heir to the family fortune and leave Drew out in the cold. Drew's rise turns sour. Drew Kane, Cameron Matheson, has been riding high lately, or so he thought. Since returning from Pentonville, he's been determined to rebuild his life, reclaim his company, and prove that he's not the same man who went to prison. But in his desperate climb to the top, Drew's moral compass has taken a serious beating. From his ruthless business moves against Nina to the way he's been manipulating Michael and Ned, Drew's transformation into a corporate shark hasn't gone unnoticed. Even Carly, who once stood by him through his darkest hours, is beginning to see a side of Drew that's colder, harder, and far more dangerous than she ever imagined. And now, karma is knocking hard. Aurora in crisis. Drew's big gamble backfires. In true Port Charles fashion, Drew's empire begins to crumble from within. Whispers are spreading that Aurora's recent merger deal isn't as clean as Drew made it out to be. There's talk of financial manipulation, hidden assets, and even falsified documents. Ned, ever the watchful Quartermain, starts to dig deeper, and what he finds could end Drew's career in one stroke. If Drew did cut corners to get Aurora back on top, it's not just his reputation on the line. He could face another stint behind bars. But Ned isn't Drew's only problem. Tracy, sharp as ever and smelling blood, decides it's time to strike. She's been quietly gathering evidence and preparing for the perfect moment to expose Drew's dirty dealings. If she can destroy him, she can reclaim ELQ once and for all, and make sure that the Quartermain legacy stays in her hands. However, Tracy's bombshell discovery may lead to an even bigger twist, one that shakes the very foundation of who the true heir to the Quartermain fortune really is. The secret in the house. While Drew's business is falling apart, the walls of the Quartermain mansion hold a secret decades in the making. A mysterious old letter, discovered in one of Edward's hidden safes, sends shockwaves through the family. Monica, trying to keep the peace, insists they deal with the matter quietly. But when Brooke Lynn accidentally overhears the contents, she can't keep the truth under wraps. According to the letter, Edward left behind a secondary clause in his will, one that could dramatically alter the ownership of the estate. It references a blood heir born in secrecy, who was never publicly acknowledged but has legal claim to the Quartermain fortune. Rumors immediately start swirling. Could this mysterious heir be someone already living in Port Charles? Someone who doesn't even know their true lineage? Suspects and speculation. Theories fly as the family gathers to confront the shocking claim. Tracy assumes it's another scheme from one of the usual suspects. Maybe an illegitimate child of Jimmy Lee Holt or a fake relative trying to cash in. But Ned isn't so sure. Olivia, ever the emotional heart, senses that the truth might be closer than anyone realizes. When she brings up the possibility that Edward may have fathered another child decades ago, perhaps with a woman who left Port Charles under mysterious circumstances, the room falls silent. And then, one name surfaces that no one saw coming: Skye Quartermaine. Skye's connection to the family has always been complicated, but new documents suggest her bloodline may have more weight than anyone believed. If verified, it could mean that Skye's descendants, not Drew or even Michael, are the rightful heirs to the Quartermaine estate. That revelation sends Drew into a tailspin. Not only is his company in jeopardy, but the Quartermaine fortune he's been protecting for years could slip through his fingers, into the hands of someone he doesn't even consider family. Carly's crisis of conscience. Meanwhile, Carly finds herself torn between loyalty and love. She's been trying to stand by Drew, but his behavior is testing her patience. His anger, his obsession with control, and his willingness to burn bridges for power are eerily reminiscent of the man she thought she'd never fall for again, Sonny Corinthos. When Carly confronts Drew about his recent actions, he explodes, accusing her of turning against him just when he needs her most. The blowout leaves Carly shaken, and questioning whether she's been blinded by guilt and loneliness rather than love. Then, to make matters worse, Sonny himself steps into the chaos. Seeing Drew unravel reminds Sonny of his own demons, and he can't resist rubbing salt in the wound. He warns Carly that Drew is no different than any other man who lets power corrupt him. And for once, Carly doesn't fight back. Could Carly be on the verge of walking away from Drew for good? Karma comes calling. As Drew's world collapses, his downfall becomes a spectacle across Port Charles. The SEC begins sniffing around Aurora again, thanks to a tip that seems to have come from within his own circle. Ned denies involvement, but Tracy's smirk says it all. Karma has arrived, and it's got Drew's name written all over it. Facing public humiliation, the threat of prison, and the loss of both Carly and his fortune, Drew finds himself right back where he started, alone, angry, and trapped. But this time, there's no one left to save him. His brutal smackdown might just be the wake-up call he desperately needs, or the beginning of his permanent fall from grace. The heir revealed? Just as Drew's future looks bleak, the Quartermaines gather for a tense reading of the newly discovered documents. Monica, Tracy, Ned, and Brooke Lynn are all present, along with a surprise guest, Skye, freshly returned to Port Charles after receiving a cryptic message.